Welcome, everybody. There may be more people arriving, but we don't want to make you sit and wait for too long. So I'm Susan Altman. I'm with Arts Medford, which is a community-run nonprofit that nurtures creativity and supports artists and the arts in Medford. We work to we work to reflect our diverse community by making accessible every aspect of arts that we can, removing barriers to participation and bringing the arts into the community. I want to welcome you to Arts After Dark, which is a series of virtual events that is put on by Arts Medford. We used to be sponsored by MARV, the Medford Arts Resource Vehicle, but sadly MARV had to be put out to pasture this summer because he just got a little too old and we couldn't find parts to repair him anymore. One more person wants to come in. Arts After Dark is supported in part by a grant from the Medford Arts Council, a local commission that's supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the City of Medford. We're also supported by Arts Alive Medford Foundation, Tufts Community Grants, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and some generous individuals. Before I turn it over to Sarah, I also want to acknowledge that Medford is part of the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Pawtucket, Wampanoag, and Massachusetts peoples. The Mystic River is a modified form of the Algonquin name Missituck, meaning Great Tidal River. This acknowledgement offers recognition and respect to the original caretakers of this land and their descendants today, especially since the indigenous history of our region has been largely erased for the last 400 years. So, as you know, tonight, Sarah Beardsley is here and members of her ensemble, the Quanta Recorder Quartet. Did I get that right? Ensemble. And I would like to introduce Sarah to take over at this point. She has a pre-recorded video so that they can control for things like sound and dogs wandering by. And so after she does an introduction, she will play that recording, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. And we hope you have a great time. I'm going to mute everyone at this point just to prevent the odd weirdness. But if you need to say something after the video, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Susan. And thanks everyone for joining me. So Quanta Recorder Ensemble, we actually have been playing, we were trying to figure out how long we've been playing together. There are three of us, and we've been playing certainly for much longer than 20 years. And actually one of my ensemble mates is here. So it's made of, ensembles made of me, Sonia Wise, and Barbara Offenhartz. And the title of this also was Playing Through the Pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, we were trying to figure out what to do because we've played together for, over 20 years, and we would be just about every single week to play. And of course, it was a shock that, first of all, because of the whole pandemic, but then also because we couldn't get together to play. So then Barbara had the wonderful idea of, well, why don't we go and play on my patio in my backyard? And at that point it was May. And it's like, well, why didn't we think of that? Because it was perfectly safe to play outside. We were socially distanced from each other. And so we were able to play just about every week. And then if it was raining, she would open up her garage, take her car out, leave the garage doors open, and we would play in her garage. Once it got to be winter time and it was really, thinking, okay, it's going to be too cold to do this. Well, Sonia has a lake house up in New Hampshire, and they close it up in later October, and they don't really have any heat except for these radiant heaters. So she brought her radiant heaters down with her from New Hampshire once she closed up her summer house for the year. And so when the weather got too cold, we wound up playing in the garage with the doors open and the radiant heaters on us, so it kept the edge off. Plus we had fingerless gloves on, so it kept our hands mostly warm enough so we could still move our fingers and play. And I would say we played pretty much straight through the winter. There was only about, I think, 2 or 3 times that we missed because it was just too cold. Our rule was if it's below 40, we wouldn't play. And we didn't really have any big storms, so we didn't have to worry too much about that, at least the weather, as far as storms are concerned. So we did really well. Well, we're all vaccinated. We've all been fully vaccinated since April, and we had talked about, well, we could play inside if the weather is yucky, but then, we really started to enjoy just playing outside. And then when Susan had approached us about making, doing a video and making a performance for all of you, we discussed what to make, because we have a really big repertoire, and we have so many pieces that we love. It was hard to decide, but we decided on Vivaldi's Folia. Now, before I play that, I want to tell you a little bit about the piece. So first off, Vivaldi is a Baroque composer, but the Folia is actually mostly originating from the Baroque times, but it comes from a folk tune and folk tunes and folk dances from the 1500s. So it's actually, the Folia is based from much older. And Folia actually means madness. So when I mean madness, it's basically about the whirling dervishes and the wild dances that the folk music evoked in the 1500s, and it's mainly from Iberia, Spain, Portugal, that whole area. So it's also known as folly too, but in Spanish it's folly. Folia is folly, but in Italian it's madness. And it basically had to do with the frenzied way that people danced. So a lot of the folias are it's a variation on the theme. So you have the theme and then variations. At least the Baroque composers did that. There are more modern versions now that are folias, and you can find them, but they are harder to find than versus Baroque times. Corelli is another composer that has a very famous folia if you ever want to listen to his. And the more modern versions are not necessarily, don't evoke so much of the wildness, and not all the folias do. So if you are familiar or not with the Baroque time, the Baroque music had a lot of very calm music, but then it also had very upbeat, and most sonatas, most pieces like to have a mix of everything. And the Vivaldi's Folia has that as well. So many of the pieces that were also written during Baroque times were not written for the instruments that we're playing. So we're playing recorder, which is also known in German as a Blockflöte, because it has a block in the head. And it's a flute, basically. It is a flute. And it's the recorder was started actually during Renaissance times, and it evolved over time through the Baroque period. But then after the Baroque period, it really wasn't used much. Once you got into the classical music time, you had the big orchestras, and recorder was just too quiet, which is why you had more of the modern tin flute, although there were the side flutes too. But those again were also too quiet for a modern orchestra because they're wooden instruments versus a metal. So I'm going to show you shortly. So the Folia because we're playing this on recorder, the original was written for string instruments. And many of the pieces, trio sonatas, that type of thing, were written not necessarily for recorder, but some were all written for string, some were written with flute, some with oboe, some with different combinations. I mean, Handel did the same, Bach did the same, and they all use recorders in some of their pieces, but for like some of the bigger pieces like this, not as much. So I am going to, if Susan, if you will give me a screen sharing, and I can, okay, thank you. And I am going to now share my screen. I'm going to show you, this is Apollo's Fire, which is a string group, and this was recorded in 2013.
Sarah, if you're showing something, it's not showing up.
I know, I haven't clicked yet.
Got it.
I'm just explaining first, and then
okay.
So this is, so I'm going to show you the and play for you the string version of the main theme, just so you can hear the difference. And then I'm going to switch over to our performance. So this performance, when, just so you know, we really worked this piece up and we recorded it several times until we got it about just as good as we could possibly do. This is on Barbara's patio. And so if you see birds or shadows or bugs flying by, don't be surprised. And you'll see there's a breeze. The other thing too, I should also mention to you, is that you will see that our music is clipped to our music stands. We have found that clothespins are our friend, because in order to play outside, if you've got the breeze, you have to be careful that the wind doesn't flip your music over, which has happened to us. Luckily, when we recorded, we were all tacked down and it was safe. So now I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to play Apollo's Fire's version of Folia, but it's just the opening thing.
We're not getting much sound.
You aren't getting much sound? Okay. Let me put my, okay, let me try here.
It's very in and out.
Okay, hold on. Exit out of the full screen here. That is weird. Hold on one second. Let's try now. Better?
Not great.
It's not great?
Nope.
It's as high as it can possibly
Well,
go.
it's not, the first notes are very definite and then it disappears.
Weird.
Yeah.
Let me stop sharing here.
Sometimes there's a way you can fix your sound, but I don't know what to suggest.
Let me do original sound on and see if that makes a difference. Good. Okay, I am stopping that now because they actually, you heard the beginning of the theme, and now I'm going to switch over to us playing. So let me go back to, okay, so here we are. We are sitting in Barbara's patio. This was done this summertime. So you can see all our music is tacked down on our stands. So, and because this piece is actually 18 movements long, we had to, there are some page turns, so then there's slight breaks. So, but I'm going to play the whole piece. I hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you.
Very nice.
Thank you. That is it. Did you notice all the birds chirping in the background?
Certainly did. Added
And the
atmosphere.
airplanes and the helicopters flying overhead. We've had other times when we were recording this too and rehearsing, we had bunnies hopping in the front. We had some other birds like flying and dive bombing. Yeah.
Funny,
Yeah.
funny. That was really nice. And it was really nice that you could do it outside and it was so sunny and it was so pretty. And yeah, that added a special atmosphere.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Glad you enjoyed it.
So if I know that at least one or two of you are insiders, but if anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment, feel free to unmute yourself and do so. If not, I have a question or two. All right, I'll be first up. So my question is, were recorder ensembles a thing in the early days of recorders, or is that something that has come about recently? And if so, what do you think is behind that?
It actually was a thing. And actually, in Renaissance times, you heard a lot of recorder consorts. In fact, usually, when people actually performed pieces, all the recorders they played were a matching set. So it made it a lot easier to tune. As you noticed, all three of us were playing very different recorders. They were not a match set. And so that makes it harder to tune. As it is, recorders are not easy to tune to begin with, because they're wooden instruments. Usually, you have to play them for a certain period of time for them to warm up before they reach their maximum pitch, and then you have to retune. So when we recorded this piece, we actually played for a little bit beforehand before we recorded, so that our recorders were completely warmed up so that tuning would work. But yes, there were recorder consorts. One thing I should also mention, that Vivaldi, he composed some pieces also for recorder. Bach did some, Handel did some, but Vivaldi, many of the pieces that he composed, he actually taught in a girls' school, and he composed for them. So you have to figure that those girls had to be really gifted to be able to play what he composed. And this was, just about everything that he composed at one point or other, they played.
Wow.
So, but yeah, there were definitely recorded consorts there. There were some also in Baroque times, although not as much as in Renaissance. Usually you'd have like 2, maybe 3 recorder recorders playing together. But more often than not in Baroque times, the recorder was used as part of something else. So like some of the Bach cantatas, for instance, there are some pieces in there that have like two recorders in them. Um, and Bach's Brandenburg concertos, there's some recorders in them, but they're not the main instrument.
And you also had said something before you started playing the video about sort of recorders not being selected often in orchestras because they're softer than the other instruments.
Yeah.
So do a lot of people who play recorders also play flutes because of that, or are they very different instruments in other ways?
Some do, some don't. I actually have played modern flute. So I've been playing recorder for what, 40 plus years, 49 years, something like that. And when I was in middle school, I decided to try modern flute. And I played it for a couple of years, but I kind of put it by the wayside. It's a totally different instrument. Some of the fingerings are the same, but the way that you play it and blow into it is completely different. Because the modern flute, you have to have an embouchure to get it just right. Recorder, you play obviously just straight up and down. You blow right into directly. But with the modern flute, you can do piano and forte and all the different sound variations easily, whereas in a recorder, the way to do that is with tonguing. So you can't do like what you would normally think of as if you're, okay, sing loud, so you just sing louder, and quieter, you just back off. You can't do that with recorder because it goes out of tune quick. So you have to do it with tonguing. It's like a whole finesse thing. Yeah, it's not, it's not as simple to play as modern instruments.
Right. So playing it quietly makes it go out of tune faster?
Well,
Oh,
if you reduce your breath pressure while playing recorder, it will go out of tune. Yes.
And then how do
if
you
blow,
retune them?
you just have to so when we're tuning together with each other, usually when we first start playing, we don't bother tuning because we know the sound's going to change like within 5 minutes or so. So because you have to let the recorders warm up, because they're wood, most of them they're wood, and that's just what happens with wooden instruments. So it's kind of like with a harpsichord. When you move a harpsichord, they're even more temperamental than recorders. So if you move a harpsichord, you have to let it sit for an entire day before you even attempt to tune it, because the wood can expand or contract. So wooden instruments are super temperamental as far as tuning is concerned. So so when we rehearse, we play for at least 5 or 10 minutes before we even bother tuning. And then we'll pick a few notes, and then you can, with the recorder, you can actually raise and lower the head joint a little bit. So, and usually it's just like a minuscule amount that you need. But sometimes you do that, and then oftentimes it's just making ourselves aware of not blowing too hard, or blowing just a hair more than the other person, just to come up in tune. It depends also on what note that you're playing.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating.
Yeah, because there's certain notes, like the higher up you go in the scale, the harder it is to tune. The lower you are, it's easier. Yeah.
So does that mean that the larger instrument that was on the right side of the screen is easier to tune altogether because it's bigger?
No, not necessarily. So it's more the note, not the instrument itself. So that instrument, so Sonia was playing a bass, I was playing a tenor, Barbara was playing the alto, she was upper. And yeah, so and then there's other sizes too of instruments. So there's soprano, which is about the half the size of the alto, and then there's sopranino, which is half the size. It's like a quarter the size of the alto. It's like it's tiny.
No.
And then there's bigger too. I mean, there's also, so Sonia was playing a bass. There's also a great bass, which is like a small tree. And then there's contrabass, which is even, and the great bass and the contrabass, you actually have to stand up to play because you can't sit, because, and usually they have like these, what are called a bocal. It's like a thing that goes like this and it curves around so that you can actually play it.
Wow.
Although I've seen many people that play it, you have to be super tall to play them because they are like a tree. They really are.
Wow. That's nuts.
So,
Anybody else have any comments, any questions? Melody said it was lovely.
I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, Brenna said she liked it too. Okay, Brenna has to leave. Thanks for coming, Brenna. So, one other thing too about the recorders, thought just left my mind. Oh yeah, about the sizing of them. So they're oh, Melly was asking which recorder. Yeah, so I was playing the tenor. So, and I should also mention that the recorders that we played are modern pitch. So when I mean modern pitch, it's like a current pitch. So the Baroque old pitch, low pitch, was a different frequency. So it would sound a quarter note lower. So most recorders these days are made modern pitch. So if you hear it and you're playing it like even like with a modern guitar or playing with a piano, whatever, you can tune it just fine. But if you're going to play a low pitch instrument, it doesn't work that way. So you have to play with another instrument that can handle a low pitched instrument. So and as you were saying, Susan, too, for playing consorts, if you have a low pitched instrument, everyone has to play low pitched or it won't sound right.
Right.
So so many harpsichords. So for instance, you can play low pitched with, because the harpsichords can vary tune easily down a quarter tone.
Right.
And personally, I mean, these were all modern pitch recorders, but I love low pitch. It's a much more mellow sound. Much more mellow sound, but not everyone has a low pitch recorder.
Right. Right.
So, any other questions?
I can't remember what it is. Oh, I had a sort of personal question. What attracted you to the recorder to start with?
So, I was 8 years old in elementary school, and as part of our music class, everyone had to learn recorder, and it was part of our music curriculum. And it was for only 2 weeks. So we were all given recorders, and just these little plastic cheap recorders, and a beginning recorder method book. And so I took it home and started playing, and I got it like that. I mean, like nothing. So, and I remember like we were all supposed to come back like the next week, and everyone, so picture this, a big music room, like you're talking like 100 students here. Okay, 100 8-year-olds.
Oh my goodness.
All sitting, like semicircle with the recorders and play. Oh my gosh, yeah, my ears were like, well, okay. So, but I got it quickly. I mean, and I kind of was looking at my classmates like, why is this so hard? Why are you having so much trouble? This isn't hard. You
Maybe
just
they
look at
hadn't
these notes and
practiced.
yeah, well, I didn't practice much, but I did some. It just came easy.
Yeah.
So after those 2 weeks, and my parents saw how much I really enjoyed it.
Mm.
So they found me a recorder teacher who came to our house just about every week. And I would say between elementary school and by the time I graduated high school, I had 3 different music teachers, recorder teachers. And many of them came right directly to the house. And yeah, one of them helped me with, I actually applied to music school. One helped me with all of that when I was in high school. So yeah, so it just became second nature. So I mean, I had times that, again, just with us playing in the backyard when I was a kid, I would go into our backyard in the summertime and take my music stand, a chair, grab a bench and my music, and I would just play, and I'd actually attract all the different birds. So I had like a wren that would be like flitting around me the whole time. There's another time I was taking care of our neighbor's dog, and he would sit there and he would start howling, which was, I stopped.
Singing along.
Yeah, I stopped playing because I was laughing too much. But yeah, I mean, I've been playing since I was 8 years old.
Yeah, that's
Basically.
great.
So, and this was my major in college as well.
Ah. Okay. So one last chance if anybody wants to have a comment, because it's coming on 8 o'clock and we should let you go otherwise. Thank you so much for all the work that you put into creating this video, and it was really lovely.